Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and we have a very interesting special show for you this evening. Jonathan Weygandt is back with us. He's going to be talking about his encounter along with Mike Herrera. They both had kind of similar encounters, both in the Marines. And I had a picture here, and I was just trying to pop it up of showing that here it is. Jonathan and I are actually in the same room together. We're just facing each other, different computers. And so I am, well, first of all, I'm just going to say Charles Lear may be coming on the show next week. He's our blogger, and he has a new book called Crash Saucers. And so he may be coming on next week. The blog he wrote for us this week is photos of UFOs over a Mexican oil rig. And so he will be, like I say, probably coming back on the show. He was on once before. And without further ado, Jonathan and Michael, welcome both.
Good to see him.
Thank you.
And I'm up here in North Carolina, not too far away from where Jonathan lives. And I decided to do this little Airbnb, and it's working out perfectly here, except we got the code. We screwed up the code on the door and almost got locked out. Almost didn't happen. One of these things, but we made it. We're here. So I'd like to start generally. We're both going to be talking about things and talking to Jonathan today and this evening. There's a couple of things that he's going to be adding that I think everyone's going to find really fascinating. Things that happened, things that were stressful for him. Keep that in mind. But things that did happen to him after, and he's got a lot of people behind him that know about this particular case, Jonathan's case, and are backing him up, and hopefully, that will remain that way. But for now, Michael, if you would, can you, for the person who has never heard what happened to you in Indonesia back in 2009, if you wouldn't mind filling us in?
Yeah, sure. So 2009 October timeframe, it was late September. There was an earthquake that actually hit off the far western side of Sumatra, and the area that basically where we got called into, as there was already another humanitarian operation underway that was in the Philippines. So our ship was the only one that was routed out to the far western side, and which was weird at the time. That's the only ship that I saw, which was our ship, which was USS Denver, attached with the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which then again was attached to the 7th Naval Fleet. So essentially, we had got called in to provide humanitarian assistance, but my team more specifically was more for security approach, because Indonesia being the second largest terrorist capital in the world. So we ended up getting onto a helicopter. It wasn't like a normal chain of command thing. This was kind of like they put sticks together with randomized people and just lumped us all together and said, this is your squad. You're going to go with these people. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And that would end up happening. So we ended up loading onto a CH-53E Super Stallion, flew to an airport that was close to Padang City. And then we touched down on the landing pad, the landing strip there, or the runway. And we ended up flying to a remote area that didn't have hardly any people in there from what I can recall. We ended up getting off the bird, basically going to this slope or kind of a hill that kind of had observation over the LZ. And we were equipped with a basic combat load, so 6 magazines. So I had one inserted in M16A4, and we were basically condition 4, meaning that, condition 4, which I just had a magazine inserted in there. So then basically you just had to rack it back. We weren't necessarily there to intimidate or try to fight anybody, because we're doing a peacekeeping operation. So we end up going on top of this hill to get better observation of this LZ. We had turned around and kind of, I had a camera with me because this is the first time I've ever been on an actual mission. So I'm taking pictures and videos of the helicopter that, came in and was kind of sitting there, and then it took off. And then we ended up going up to the hill. So I'm kind of doing my thing again. And we turned to basically what would be our north direction. And this is where the slope starts to go down. And this is where we saw something kind of moving, but it was like, you had tree and vegetation in the way, so you're not able to actually make out what you're actually seeing. And I was 1 out of 6 with us, so there were 6 Marines total, and we had M16A4s. And we saw this thing starting to change colors. we thought it was a building or some kind of shadow effect or whatever it is. We didn't think anything of it, but we kind of got curious and we basically trekked down. And when we got basically about close to 300 meters, I would estimate, because this what we ended up seeing when it started to clear was this craft sitting there, and it wasn't making any kind of loud noises. It wasn't doing anything like a jet propulsion or like a helicopter. It was just kind of like a humming noise, something like a transformer or something like a guitar amp. That's the only way I can really describe that. And it was sitting there, but it was rotating. And as it was sitting there, it wasn't going like this. It was completely still. And it's rotating. It was an octagonal shape. It was about 300 feet is what I estimate, because the helicopters that we have when you're in the Marine Corps, and Jonathan, you can probably attest to this, that you get very good at judging distances and measurements with how they train us to do it, especially in the infantry capacity. So I estimated that I can put 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft, and from nose to tail, it took about 3, which each helicopter is roughly about 100 feet from nose to tail. So when we were getting close up to this to basically identify it, which we couldn't identify it because we didn't know what the hell this thing was, we got intercepted by a team of 8 operators. And these guys, we had our weapons basically not even at the low ready, but we're just kind of walking like this. And when these guys approached us, they were already armed and they already had basically their muzzles on us. So if we're going to raise our stuff up, they've already got us pretty much sighted and ready to go off. And it was so quiet that you could actually hear them flip their safeties off. And they started screaming at us, asking who we are, who are we with? They basically told us to put our hands up in the air and let our weapons sling down. So they had us, like, if we had a tactical column here, they had us basically like this, a team of 4 here, a team of 4 here, and they're basically doing like a nosebleed. So they have multiple sectors that they can basically ambush us in if need be, getting multiple muzzles on one Marine. So they came up to us. They had us basically get online. We're facing straight ahead. They've got 2 guys searching each one of us. They're taking our magazines out of our pouches and throwing them down, kicking them off. You have a guy in the standoff distance that has his M4 basically pointed right at our faces. And you had one guy that was actually calling the shots that actually had a radio. One of the identifying markers on these people is they had American gear, like American IOTV vests, but brand new. They were black. They had just the kind of similar setups, but more high speed. They had M4s that had quad rails that had a ACOG on them. We had the RCOs. They had the PEC 16s, which were more of the updated version compared to what we had. And they were basically saying that they were going to kill us, that they could kill us. They took our IDs out of our breast pocket while we're at gunpoint like this. And so these guys obviously knew where we kept our stuff, because Marine Corps order states that you have to have your ID in your left breast pocket. So that kind of hinted to me that these guys were former military. And they had sidearms with drop leg holsters, and they had no identifying insignias. They didn't have rank. They didn't have anything. They had ball caps, which didn't have anything on them either. And so when they took our IDs, they had this thing that reminded me of a biometrics system that we were trained on. And they tried to scan our IDs with these things. And it seemed like they were getting frustrated, like they couldn't do it. So they had something that looked like a modern day smartphone, but very thin, that were starting taking pictures of our IDs. So they put back in our breast pocket. They took our weapons, obviously, from us. And when the way that they checked them, because we didn't have a round in the chamber, but the way they checked them, it told me that they've done this multiple times. That this was just something that was so fluid and smooth that they're very well versed in this, and this is like their job. So there was no misstep, if that makes any sense.
Well, can I ask you this? Did they have any type of accent? Did they sound American, would you say?
They had American dialects, yep, just like how you and I were talking. They weren't Australian, they weren't Eastern European or anything like that. They had very, like how you and I were talking, very aggressive.
And Jonathan, we'll get into a bit of what you went through, but would you say the same thing with the people that showed up in the black camo and your situation? Did they also?
Yes, in the black fatigues, they were Americans.
They were Americans. This part is just so puzzling to me. And I remember, Jonathan, you mentioned that you thought they could be DEA, Department of Energy, right?
Right.
What were your thoughts, Michael?
Well, I didn't know who these guys were, but the way that they moved and the way that they were basically checking our stuff told me that these guys were very specialized people, special operations of some sort. I didn't know who. And ever since I came forward last year, I've had these people that are working in that organization who were doing that job, not in that particular mission, but they've done missions like that throughout the world, Mexico more specifically. And they explained to me what we saw. And so they all have a special operations background. That's mainly the thing that they all annotated for. They get plucked from different sorts. JSOC mainly is where they're plucked from, as well as Delta. There's some guys that do that. So I've did some operations with these guys a couple months ago, which was life changing, and that's all I can really comment on that because I was told, and I also signed paperwork stating I would not talk about what we were doing, but it was kind of weird to see how this actually goes down. But when we're facing these guys that are actually holding us up at gunpoint, we have the craft in the background. There's these trucks that are coming up, and they're coming from our left. They looked to be like F-350s that were bulked up, like for jungle terrain or off road, and they were hauling these trailers that had these containers on them, kind of like a half-size shipping container, and it had this HVAC system on the top front part of it. And I had hypothesized when I testified to Aero, Senate Intelligence Committee, among other agencies, that I had suspected it was probably drugs of some sort, because in the back of the truck beds, they also had weapon cases, and I didn't see anything in the cases, and I didn't see anything in the containers. So they had 4 of these drive up to the platform that was underneath this craft. And I didn't see how they unloaded, because between that going on and between our encounter with these operators, we're kind of focusing between both, because it's not like you can just forget about what you're seeing off in the background. It's hard to sit there and not look at it, because I've never seen anything like that. And prior to that experience, I didn't believe in this subject at all. I thought it was ridiculous, and I used to make fun of people who believed in that kind of stuff. But after that experience, it completely changed my world on that perspective. So they're going through each of us, and we saw kind of what I could only recall are 4 trucks. There may have been more, there may have been other things, but that time and place where I was looking, I could only recount seeing 4 trucks with the same setup, with the containers, with the HVAC systems. So they had told us to basically face this hill, and in my head, I had thought that was basically that we were done.
Wow.
At that point, because that's typically, a lot of people could say, yeah, they would turn you around just to basically shoot you in the back of the head and kill you, and it'd be done and over with. But I think a couple theories of mine was that maybe that we had such a large presence as a MU and as a humanitarian assistance measure that would have attracted a lot of attention if they heard gunfire. I mean, granted, I don't know exactly the area that we went to, where we landed, where the LZ was, and that's something I'm still trying to figure out. And I've asked the help of Aero and the Pentagon to try to get at least some data on that, and they were no help on that at all. And other agencies, other people in the Intelligence Committee that I've been talking to and working with, it's the same thing. So, and they're trying to conceal things with this as well, but not just on my aspect of it, but with all of us who have testified. So when we turned around, we faced the hill, and I see a sling come over my face like this. And I thought that instant that they were probably going to choke us out or something. But what they did is they actually put our weapons cross-draw on our back. So basically the buttstock of the M16 was right here, and the muzzle was down basically by our left ankle, pointing that direction. And they cinched the sling so tight that you can't basically get that weapon off of you in time to do something. And when they put their magazines back in their pouches, instead of actually having them up, I got a magazine here, for example. So usually we put it face down like this, because when you're having to reload, you just pull it up and pop it in your weapon, right? They had it facing like this, so brass towards the sky, and which means that you had to jumble it up, position it, try to get into your weapon. By the time anybody could do anything, these guys could already get the drop on you and kill you if need be. So they started telling us to go walking up this hill back to where we originally came down from. And they kept saying very horrible things. They kept saying, we could still kill you. We'll throw you out of a helicopter if we come pick you up. We know who you are. We can find out anything about you. Like, they were saying basically everything that you can think of, and they weren't very nice about it. And so it was one of those things, like, what would have happened? What would have been told to my family if anything like that would have happened? So when we got up to that hill, we just decided to take off, because now we were basically kind of in the area where we were at. There would be at least some sight of us if there was people there, which there was some people at the LZ there. So we ended up running up, and there was this Marine that was there. I don't know who he was. I've never seen him before, and I'm just assuming he was either attached to the ship or some other element. But he was pretty surprised of why we were there, and he was not very nice about it. And we also had our weapons slung on our back. So being in a situation where you're never going to have your weapon slung when you're in an environment like that for obvious reasons. So I think that's why he was pissed off about it. We didn't tell him what happened, because obviously the subject and how, nobody would believe anything that happens if somebody sees something like that. So we ended up waiting for the bird to basically pick us up, and that's what happened. We went back to the ship, and we had a debriefing from an admiral that was there. And then when they were searching our stuff, I had a drop pouch because I was a saw gunner, and that's where I put my camera before we went down this hill. And they didn't pull anything out of that dump pouch. So I had in the back of my head that I had something when I took videos and pictures of this thing from that top view, which you could only make so much of it, that I was like, okay, I got something to show and provide if I ever decide to tell somebody about this. And when we got back to the ship, we ended up going to Subic Bay for Libo for a few days. And the first night I was there, we ended up coming back, and the other Marines that were with me during this whole thing, we never talked about it after that. And we were never going to talk about it because the fact of what happened, and the fact of the subject with this, and the fact that these guys know who we are now. So we weren't thinking that, okay, they're going to retaliate. So I got back to the ship that night, and I found my camera that I actually locked up in my locker on the ship. I found it on top of my rack, and I found the battery pack was missing, and I found that a little memory card was missing too. Oh. So and my lock was not picked. I don't know how they got into it, because it was still on there. You still had to type in the combination, twisted wherever direction, and pop the lock off, and it was not damaged. It didn't look like there was anything that was wrong with it, which is why I had the impression that nothing was done. So when I went to grab the spare battery out of my locker to put my camera, it wouldn't turn on. So I ended up throwing the camera away. And fast forward to about a month later, basically I was in my barracks room, and I ended up getting called up. The duty came and got me, said I was requested up at the CP, and I'm like, okay, great. I didn't know if I was going to be put on duty or whatever it was. So I put my cover on, run out middle side as fast as I can, and get there. And there's nobody there. So I thought somebody was messing with me or something. But there, all of a sudden, there was this Air Force Lieutenant Colonel that was there. And he had, I had saluted him, gave him the proper greeting, and he told me to basically sit in this office. And he slid a paper over to me that had, it was basically a non-disclosure, and it had Indonesia and it had TSSCI, the only two things I could recall out of that. And the only thing, because when I testified to Arrow, I provided a sketch. I provided a sketch of this gentleman, and I provided a sketch of the Admiral. And the thing that I only remember on this Air Force guy was that he didn't have a name tag of his name, which I guess in the Air Force, they have to have name tags on their service uniforms, or at least their dress blues, if you want to call it that. And the other thing, I don't remember the type of decorations he has, but I do remember that he had silver jump wings. When I had talked to some people in this subject who are very well known, and I'm not going to address them publicly, but they know about the Air Force very well, and that's only what I'm going to say about that. But they had told me that, yes, it makes sense, because that officer would be an intelligence officer. So, so that's basically where I signed it, and I got the hell out of there, and I didn't want to think about it ever again until I started seeing things happen. This is something that played in my head for 14 years straight. Something I lost a lot of sleep over. I've actually talked to a therapist about it, but not in the degree of this, because obviously I didn't want this therapist to say it was nuts or something. So I did 3 years of therapy, just trying to help come to deal with it. Because I was working at the gym competing in bodybuilding, and that wasn't doing anything that was helping with that. And so I just had to figure out how to deal with it another way. And fortunately, I was able to come forward last year and bring my story forward and try to get some insight of what's going on and try to bring some awareness. And I did just that.
And when you and I talked the first time, I mentioned Jonathan and that you were kind enough to reach out, and you two have, talked a little bit about this. And Jonathan, if you don't mind, if you can kind of also kind of give the nutshell of your story, and then I'm doing this, mostly because I know Jonathan, you already talked about this, but I want to just hear. I want the people, the listeners, to hear the similarities. It's kind of uncanny. Yours is a totally different type of craft that you saw and all that, but still.
All right. Well, people can go watch. I'm not going to go into more detail, so I really loathe to repeat myself. But generally, I was on a counter narcotics operation called.
Oops, I'm sorry. I don't know how that came up. I'm trying to get it down. It was a joke that I put up at one time, and it just popped up all on its own.
Yeah. So
it's the government.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was on this narcotics operation called Laser Strike in 1996, 97. So, I witnessed a recovery of a UFO crash in the jungle.
And I'm going to put up. This is an artist rendition. This is what
it doesn't look like that, but yeah, that's not what.
But there is some similarities, right? I mean, the changing colors. And
yeah, that's about
damage.
it.
Yeah, we just don't have anything accurate to what you saw. But if you want to try to describe it as more like egg shaped, would you say?
Well, I didn't. I only saw the aft of the spacecraft. I didn't see all of it.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure how big it was. I didn't, measure it. I'm just not sure. So, but essentially, yeah, there was a crash retrieval team that was there, and we ran there. We weren't supposed to be there, so it was an accident.
And the guys showed up,
right?
And they were pretty aggressive with you.
Yes, the ones I encountered were Americans, but I think there were others there that were foreigners. But I don't know. I can't. I'm not 100% sure. The men that I encountered, they were all Americans, special purpose forces operators.
Hmm. And did they actually, were they aggressive like they were with Mike?
Yeah, not. They were. Yes, and no. It was good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, but basically,
I describe it in the Dr. Greer interview into more detail. But suffice it to say, it's just this is like hitting the lottery, basically.
Yeah,
it only happens if you're lucky. It only happens once, but
yeah. So
it's a pretty awful situation. I'm blessed that I made it out of the Marine Corps with my life, and I got, all my digits, my arms, my hands, my feet, and everything. A lot of other men and women that were in the Marine Corps, through the late 90s and into the GWAT didn't make it out. So I'm really blessed and fortunate.
And Mike, did you ever feel like threatened as well?
Oh yeah, I still do.
You still do?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had intimidation tactics against me that I've filed with numerous agencies, and I was told on how to actually identify certain things, and it's with these insiders, with the government personnel when it started happening, because it's just something that happened that's not normal, and I'm talking about more like helicopters, literally UAVs hovering right over your house, 50 or 60 feet. They did this to my dad's house several times. To me, it's just they did to my uncle too, and there's even some people in the government who were having this happen as well. So it was just like, okay, well, great. I mean, I know that you're there because obviously you're making your point across, and it didn't happen nearly to the degree enough until after I came forward. Like after I testified to Arrow, and that was not public, is when it started happening.
Really?
And
Wow.
when I talked about it publicly and I started filing the reports with the Department of Homeland Security, it was there's 2 agents that I've told this to, and they're actually also pilots as well. So they told me basically to use an application that it can actually, you put the camera feature, put it towards the sky, and it actually will tell you everything about that craft, or not craft, but that aircraft. And when I would do this, because something would happen like that, no data would show up. And that's what they told me was basically it was a ghost ship. So they try to intimidate several ways like this. And, I haven't had it because I live underneath of an airport airspace right now. So they would basically have to identify themselves coming in. And so I haven't had that happen ever since I moved out to under this airspace. But it's just one of those things. My dad would call me up panicking, and he called me at 3 o'clock in the morning because this happened, and it rattled the walls. It scared his dogs, scared his girlfriend. Like they didn't know what the hell happened until he actually saw outside that it was a helicopter, and it was flying
Hmm.
away.
Jeez.
So, yeah, so it's a lot of people who've came forward are having the same kind of treatment, and I don't really encourage a lot of people to come forward because it's not really a fun place to be. It's not by any means, it's not fun. I know Jonathan can attest to that. You're dealing with a bunch of arrows. You're dealing with a bunch of negativity. You're dealing with a lot of closed-minded people. I've even had Marines that I was served with who were not with me try to talk against me and tried to paint me in a bad light, trying to discredit me. But the thing that I had to go off of was actually the help of these insiders who've included me into their world to an extent to learn the truth of what I experienced and what it was for.
Jonathan, I hope you feel comfortable enough to talk about what we talked about tonight about your grandmother.
Maybe later. I'm just
Okay, sure. All right.
Yeah, it's just pretty creepy, and that's creepy enough. But
Yeah.
look, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to go and get the police reports and get more documentation.
Yeah.
And maybe next time we can just do a show on that. I just want to have documentation here to show people so it doesn't come off as hearsay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's definitely intimidation going on, with Jonathan as well.
Well, this hasn't happened in a while.
But it hasn't been
Yeah.
since 1990.
Yeah, I think the government's kind of busy with a lot of people now. I think Americans generally are becoming ungovernable, we'll just say, and we need to continue to become ungovernable.
Yeah. So, Michael, you mentioned that you have spoken to some people that are familiar, though, with Jonathan's case. Can you? I don't know what type of light you can shed on that, but it's a known situation.
Correct. It is. And this particular gentleman who's well known, he had told me specifically that he had some of his people look into this, and they were able to verify based off of other corroborating sources on the back end of things that what Jonathan experienced was in fact 100% true. And I've got this. I showed you the screenshot, and I'm not at liberty to reveal that gentleman's identification. But he is a very prominent figure, and this guy doesn't mess around, and he's a very serious individual. So when I saw that, that's when I texted you, Jonathan, and showed you that, and was like, at least you got people behind you on the back end, as well as myself, who support you and want to help you in any way that we possibly can.
Mike, did I hear you say that you have spoken to someone since that actually told you what you saw?
Yes. Yes, this gentleman has been in this organization since the 90s. And his original job at the time was actually they were escorting containers like that. And he gave me a manuscript of what they released, more as a kind of I can send you the through email of what this manuscript is, so that way you have more understanding of why this pertains to me. Basically what compelled him to help me was that he recognized the containers that I saw, or at least with the HVAC systems on top. And when I did Dr. Greer's 2-day event before going to the National Press Club and becoming public in that sense, this gentleman was in attendance of that because he was also relaying information to Dr. Greer, among other people. And what he told Dr. Greer after I presented is he said that he didn't want to leave me hanging, and that the containers with what I saw, he says, were not drugs. It was people. And he says, I at some point, I want to discuss this with Michael personally and kind of read him in onto why this happened. And needless to say, the containers, because some of the manuscript that he released, which is it's cleared through Dopser, so they can talk about things and they can actually see what is redacted. But there's a situation that was very similar where they had JSOC who was intercepted by this black team, and they were essentially murdered. And they were murdered in a very barbaric way. And when I read that, because this gentleman, I was laying in bed at 11 o'clock just texting this guy, and we use encrypted communications. And he
Now,
sent me
this is Joint Special Operations Command?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So this particular operator for JSOC was murdered, and they used it. They did it in the sense that was like a killing game. It is, and it kept me up all night because it was very unsettling, because that could have been you, that could have been me, that probably has been other people that have had similar instances to what we've encountered that have not been able to tell their part of it and come back home. So I asked this guy, I was like, have you ever done this to anybody? And he said, no, I would never kill a patriot. He says, but I can do some very bad things to bad people. But that particular instance, they had those same containers that they were using in Mexico to funnel refugees into them. And these refugees, they use them for these programs, of these deep black programs that Congress does not have oversight. I know the facility, at least the base that they took me to after I was briefed, and they were adamant about getting my trust because I didn't want to meet these guys. After that instance of what I encountered, I was not adamant of just saying, oh yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and meet you guys and it'll be fun. No, it was not. I sat on this for about a day, and I thought to myself, well, if I've taken a lot of risks in my life, but I left a paper trail to some government officials, to my wife, to my dad, to a lot of other people, saying I was going to go meet this gentleman. And I didn't tell him who it was per se, but just in case something happened, that this is where I was at, So I know the installation where they still do these projects and these programs, that it doesn't exist. It looks abandoned, but it's well under operation. And they briefed me that they use these people. Basically, they screen these people for a program called psionic potential predisposition, which is like borderline psychic. And they use these people to basically put them at these installations where they have scalar longitudinal EMP weapon systems that they've made based off of NHI technology, that they use these people to build rapport with NHI. And over time, they basically get them to trust each other. And then off in the distance, you have this group that secures this whole area, right? And then they target these craft and shoot them down. And that's how they recover them. So they're using these P3s as bait to summon these craft and then shoot them down, put them into these facilities, and do some research and development on them. And the problem with this too is that these operators in this organization, they can't control this technology because they are not at that level consciously to do it. So they use these people to do it. And these people are given a choice whether or not they want to partake in that program, and they're given a very good lifestyle in lieu of that because they take them from third world countries. The Bureau of Indian Affairs is a big part of this, as well as Mexico. So if anybody wants to investigate Mexico and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, look into it, because that's what I'm urging other people to do, and that's what they've told me to urge other people to look into as well. So they flood these guys with drugs that are basically like serotonin and some other stuff that it's so bad on the endocrine system that it wears them out very fast. When they were doing this at an early part of their existence, the machine that they would hook these people up so that way this black team member can control these people to control whatever technology it is, they would die from hooking to that machine, or their best case would be in a coma, but they've refined it since then. So that's why what I saw was in lieu of that operation of them basically retrieving these people and taking them to whatever location out there that they had that was basically using them for this kind of stuff. So I didn't like knowing that. It's something that didn't sit. It still doesn't sit very well with me. And I had briefed some government officials when I heard about that, and I told among other people that should know about this as well, and they have heard this from other sources. So it was quite disturbing.
Let me ask you this, Mike. I may be coming totally out of left field on this, but do you think it is possible in a situation like this, your situation that you were in, that you could be being fed misinformation?
I thought about that too, but from the people I have in my corner, they're also being told the same thing from these people, but with factual evidence that I'm not allowed to produce. And it's more stuff that they can actually point and connect the dots to, which is connecting a lot of other people's testimonies together. These guys are the missing link of how this is going on. And that's what I discovered. So part of the reason why I was a little bit apprehensive was because when I had told some government officials that I was talking to that I was meeting with this particular gentleman, they said, "Oh yeah, we've been talking to him as well, and he's told us the same stuff. And you're the reason why they decided to talk to us because of what your experience was." So I will send you the documents that they sent me as far as this manuscript, but their briefing document of why they're doing this, because it makes total sense, and it would take up too much time to explain it here, but I'll send it to you so you can look it over and see what you
Is that is that for public consumption?
Yes, it is. You can release it.
So I could actually post that in the show notes
Yes.
for people to read. Okay.
Yes, they all they
So-
want.
Yeah.
And that's what these operators wanted me to do. They've released numerous copies to certain individuals to spread it. Dr. Greer being one of them, myself being one, and some other gentleman. I have no idea who in per se, but they want to track and see what copies are being distributed where, so that way they know it's getting out.
That sounds horrific, really, in
It
general.
is. It's not. This is, like I said, this is not fun.
Hmm.
This is absolutely not fun. There's nothing fun about this. And I think us as humans, we are owed the truth. And I think that innocent people that can be taking, which they're going along with these programs, but if they're given a choice where this, let's say in a perfect world where you actually have proper oversight and you have medical technologies that can help with this, and innocent people can stop losing their lives. And this goes to women and children. I mean, they use women and children for this a lot.
Jesus, that's really terrible.
I wanted to ask Mike a question. Are you do you speak at all on a regular basis with Dr. Greer?
It's hit or miss, man. I
I was just wondering if you could maybe if you talk to him next, if he could maybe send Martin Willis a DVD or a thumb drive of the total interview that I did with him, uncut, unedited, so that we could have the whole thing, and I could have.
I can do that.
Please do.
Yeah, I'll do that for you. Yeah, of course, man. I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
I just want the whole interview because there's different clips that are floating around, and some are edited and whatnot. I just want the full. I want to put the full interview up, the original one that he did with me.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask him for that, and let's see if he can send it to me. I'll have to ask his assistant because she knows how to do all that kind of stuff. And if she sends
I don't know if it's copyright. I don't know if they've copyrighted it or they have it or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'll have to ask him about that. I don't know the logistics about that.
Yeah. There's a question there.
Yeah, I'll put this question up.
Super chat, I guess.
Yeah, and thank you, L Observer.
Yeah, I don't want to go into that right now. I'll get back to him.
Well, no, you actually said this the last time.
Did I say what?
Yeah, I think I thought you said it was something like
I can't remember.
5 hours or something like that.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I mean, I can't give exact. I don't remember whatever I told you then was correct.
Yeah, but yeah, it was.
Oh, it was quite a distance.
Yeah, and do you think you could probably find the general area?
Oh, I know where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, I would be curious. Like there is someone that's a friend of the show in Peru, and they've told me that they would like to go to that site if they had the coordinates to actually, and they would take the time and the energy to get there. Now, I don't know if this is passable. You said it was a Hummer. You had to go there in a Humvee.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what type of road you went on, or do you
Yeah.
remember any of that?
Yeah. Just let me. Why don't we do another show on that, and I'll go into it. How's that? So I can like put all my thoughts together and have some cogent.
Yeah. Okay.
I would advise your friend not to do that.
Yeah, well, the issue though is that area we were in at that time was a war zone, so I wouldn't want to be just haphazardly walking around a war zone for many reasons.
Yeah, well, I know these installations, at least the one that I went to, their security measures. I mean, it's top of the line
Well,
stuff.
this is out in the bush, but just generally, these areas are. I don't know if they're safe really to go to now. I don't know. I don't know the situation there, the geopolitical situation currently here contemporarily in Peru. I have no idea. I don't keep up with it. I'm sorry.
So, so Michael, I remember listening to you. I watched that when you first came out with this, and you just have a thought. You don't know for sure, but you have a thought that this could possibly be some type of back engineered type of situation.
I know it is, and these insiders I've been working with, they had told me flat out that because they're doing the crash retrievals personally, that's what they do, and they retrieve their own stuff to test because they do weapon testing against their own stuff, but they also use it against NHI. This particular installation I went to, they usually target and shoot down 2 to 3 ET craft a year. And most of the time, they're also doing rack testing of other various systems. But from what they had provided to me personally, was that a lot of the craft that they actually have that they back engineered or reverse engineered is almost super identical to NHI to where they're having a hard time telling the difference now. How they move, how they function, they can cloak, they can pretty much replicate and do what NHI craft can do. They've gotten that far.
And how could this? Do you think that this could be held secret if this is the case? I mean, it just seems like someone somewhere would leak this out.
Well, that's what I'm doing, and that's what they're using me to do this with. So, it's a very well kept secret because everything's very isolated. This organization, they have their hands in everything. They are plugged into the government. They're plugged in the military. They're plugged in the financial system. They are like a secret society. They're in local law enforcement agencies. They're in federal law enforcement agencies. They're everywhere. They've got their people positioned. So if something like this was to get out, they know how to get people to scrub it. They know how to get people to murder, intimidate, maim, harass, you name it. They're experts at this. This organization came into existence in 1947 when the president signed the National Security Act. And the purpose of it was to keep Big Blue, which is government, to keep going for the conventional side of things, to basically advance their steps towards, obviously warfare on the conventional side. This group was created more in the lieu of being so covert and secret, but also developing and coordinating with this issue as far as non-human intelligence is concerned. That's their whole point. And it was certain Air Force higher ups that created this. So that's where this came into effect, and this is why this has been. So when the National Security Act, it also allowed these private companies to act without the government's behalf and basically be able to supersede law enforcement officials and even government officials where they don't have to answer it. So this was all deliberately done.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I was talking to Jonathan today that I found an old interview I did 2017 with the ex-CIA that actually went to prison basically because he was a whistleblower on torture. But listening to that, there's so many things that seem so corrupt, I have to say, in our government and all these hidden things. And, he's openly talking about it. He knows, people are surveilling him still. And, but it's really scary. I mean, it feels like we really don't have any control when it's this type of thing.
That we don't, and the issue is I've seen people kind of ask, well, what happens if they take over? No, they already taken over. This is why we're in this predicament to begin with. These guys are also helping with the corruption of politicians. they understand that people have a price and they can pay that price, and they will give them whatever money it is to either help further their agenda, put them on their side so they can get funding through the government, through taxpayer dollars, through these programs that they can siphon illegally from the black budget. Like, they've got this whole system in place and they're experts at it. And this is what they do for a living. I mean, they have no oversight, they're above the law, and they can do whatever they want.
Just real quick, these there's that other super chat there.
Oh, this one right here. Yes.
Do you know him?
Wait a minute. I'll bring it up. Yeah. Do you happen to know who this person is?
No, I don't. Who is this? Do you know them? I mean, have they been on here before?
Oh, no. I just thought this was a question for you. So
I don't remember him.
yeah.
I don't know him.
Yeah. So also just let the listener know, I also have information on the program that Jonathan was in. Operation Laser Strike started in 1996. It was basically to stop the drug running at that time, right? And
Right, counter narcotics operation. If that guy, if he can send you an email, just forward it to me.
Yeah,
and
all right.
I'll talk to him if he wants to talk to me.
Oh, this other person, yes.
Well, this guy, he's got 2 super chats, didn't he? That one, and there was another one. I think it was the same.
Oh, yes, you're
same
right.
individual.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So this person, if you want to,
Yeah, he's in Charlotte, so he's about 2 hours away south of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell him to if he's listening now, I guess if he can send you an email, just forward it to me.
Yeah.
Forward his my email address, and I'll talk to him.
All right, Michael. The question looks like it's for you. Are you arrow indication they are located in the program? Do you understand any of this? Does the R&D for the craft involved in this event?
So I understand that there's a lot of aerospace companies that are responsible for developing certain reverse engineer programs within the legacy program as well, which is what this whole thing is called, right? So there's some theories. Obviously, there's things I can't talk about regarding this issue just because I'm not being given clearance to do that from these individuals because their safety, if it comes out, a lot of people are going to pinpoint who's told me what, and that's kind of the hard part that I'm in.
I understand.
But yeah, Arrow has had numerous people come forward talking about the reverse engineered aspect, and that's honestly what they don't want people to know about, because then it has to explain to humanity why we're still running off of gasoline engines, why we're still having to pay utilities, why we still have illnesses and cancers, which this technology can eradicate all of that, which would put an end to the pharmaceutical company. It would put an end to the oil, gas, coal, electric tycoons. They would go bankrupt overnight. And those are some of the people that are pulling the strings for a lot of this corruption that's going on, because they have endless amounts of money. I mean, the industry itself, I think, is roughly $700 trillion is what it's worth. So when you have people who own those assets, they can do whatever they want. Everybody's got a price, and that's how they see it.
I've always thought that if someone came along and had some type of, thing that would change the whole energy section, that it would be so hard to get out, because of the power and the money that's behind all the fossil fuel companies. And
that's why those people are murdered. I mean, they're flat out murdered. They're sequestered. They're basically have this technology seized, with whether they keep it up with, or some people actually go for more the enticing offer of pocketing several $1 million. And all this company does is, or whoever this is, just takes that product and black shelves it and doesn't put it out for public use, so they buy it from the person and basically lock it up. I mean, greed and corruption are really the reason why this is going on.
Yeah, the paintbrush companies held the roller like that. Do you know that? The paint roller? Yeah, the paintbrush companies bought that idea and shelved it for a dozen years before it came out. So it's been going on. What I'm getting at, it's been going on forever.
My concept of the control in terms of power, right? In the sense of energy distribution, right? This would the Western and just in the Western world, just generally, the oligarchy here, they're Malthusian. Okay, Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, all of it, right? The infrastructure of thought, of philosophical thought of the Western oligarchy is, extreme Malthusianism, Green New Deal, all of this, right? Shut off energy, curve human population, and all of this. This is, and von Leibniz talked about free fire or cheap energy, that you would need cheap energy so to grow the human population. And we used to have a space program where we were going to go, to the moon, obviously, but to Mars and beyond. And that's what you could focus on and get the world behind, and just give up this what the ruling class calls fossil fuels. Some of it is, some of it isn't. I think a lot of oil is abiotic, but they just want to keep us in this block universe, right? That if one person prospers, you've taken away from others. And this is not my philosophical view of objective reality. And I think we should be getting off of oil and all this as well. I mean, no one likes pollution. I just think, again, I think that well, at least from my perspective, the center of the anti-liberty conspiracy would be to keep people poor and to deny advanced technologies to maintain oligarchical domination of the Western world outside of the Chinese and the Russian space.
I'm sorry, I gotta jump back on track here for just a minute. Michael, I just gotta ask Jonathan something offline here. So I'm gonna mute us. But someone had a question here for you to talk about the underground situation that you witnessed. Are you able to talk about that?
All I can say is, based on that, yes, these installations for the most part are subterranean, and they go down several several levels. I can't give specifics, but they are real. Deep underground military bases are a real thing. It's the most common practice for all this technology because they have somewhere to store it, and it's safe from nuclear fallout, nuclear exchange. So I wish I could talk about it further, but I honestly can't. So maybe one day in the future I will be able to, and when that does happen, I'll be able to point and paint a picture for everybody so they understand. But it's a lot of money that to fund these. And what the interesting thing about this too is all these installations are very self-sufficient. So everybody's asked, well, what about the janitors? What about the people who prep the food or do facilities maintenance? Like, why don't they come forward? Well, they're also taken in a demographic of people that may not have this ability with P3 when they're screened, but they use these refugees also to use this. And if they're given a good lifestyle, they're taken care of, they have medical, they've got education, their families are taken care of, then they will not come forward and risk their livelihood because they're technically illegal immigrants, and there's a risk that, let's say, if they were to get deported or something, they'd have to go back to where they're at. They don't want to go back to a impoverished area. They want to stay in the program they're doing because they're taken care of.
Sure.
And that's kind
sense.
it's because what they have expressed is that if you were to go liberate people in these installations, they are people who don't want to be liberated. They want to just resume their lifestyle because they're given everything they need, more than what they would be in their original environment that they come from.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I just wanted to wait. I need to get that documentation before I want to talk about it.
All right.
I know that we had the conversation.
But
I mean, I've had harassment, but I never told Dr. Greer what I told you today.
Yeah.
I've talked to it with a couple other people, friends of mine.
Yeah.
But I just thought that if I got into that other stuff, that it would
but
just kind of take away.
You don't have to talk about the car. I mean, if you're able to
Well,
talk
no,
about
I
your
mean,
grandmother.
I want to get the police report. I'm sure they still have it.
All right. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. It was just a situation where he was harassed.
Okay. Well, look. I had what appeared to be a federal agency vehicle car turn in when I lived at my grandmother's. We had a disappearing driveway essentially, and I I was parked a little bit further back than I should have, and a government car pulled in and hit me. I guess they were trying to turn around. I don't know what they were doing, but they left their front bumper and the government plate that they had on the front of it on the bumper itself, and it tore off, and they left it. And this has been years ago, several years ago, a long time, about 25 years ago or so. And I filed a police report. I'm going to obtain the police report at some point. And but anyhow, I traced it. Well, they did. The local police, the Graham police, traced it to the federal government. That's how I knew. Well, I mean, anyway, so that's how I knew that. But this has been years ago.
But I mean, the guy that showed up and knocked at the door. Are you able to?
Yeah. Just
if you,
can we go? Can we go into it later?
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah, I understand, and I understand, Jonathan.
It's creepy, man, and this is really what we're talking about is pretty far out already. I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. It's I can express personally. I know it's difficult, man, because I'm going through similar stuff, and that's why I'm always armed. I'm people kind of call it paranoid. I call it being safe.
Right.
I'm not on my phone when I'm driving. I'm looking around. I'm trying to see what's going on and trying to keep my head on the swivel. So, and I was told that that's how I should approach things because, we're keeping the bad people up at night with this.
But do you feel, Michael, do you feel more comfortable since you've actually talked about it? And I mean, does this help you in a way to have like a public conversation where, do you feel more protected by talking about it?
To an extent. And I think it's funny that the government was like, oh yeah, you get protections as a whistleblower. Well, in a legal sense, I do. It's not like I have a guards with me. They're going everywhere between my house and work and, every place of business I have, or it's not that's not how it works. And the way I see it too is like, if they're going to do something, they're going to do something. I can't stop that. I can try, but if I'm outnumbered or, these guys are obviously more skilled than what I'm ever going to be, so it's the way I see it, it may be a matter of time. We accept that reality at the end of the day. It's just how it is. You shake up the hornet's nest, you're going to get a few hornets.
I mean, if there's this program you're talking about, it's just so like amazing and mind blowing that something like this could be actually happening and people getting away with it. And, it's just.
I think the world is becoming increasingly destabilized.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a major regional conflict going with hundreds of thousands dead or wounded. We've got a continually weakened economy. We don't have mass production in the United States anymore.
Nope.
And we're just things aren't looking good for Americans at this point.
No. So I see this question here. They actually didn't check my dump pouch, which was surprising because the camera itself wasn't very big. And it wasn't something that had like the thing that flips open like the screen. It was just like a flat camera that was probably about this big. And I stuck it in there. So the pouch itself wasn't small. But I think they were in a hurry. I don't know why. But I wish they never found it on ship because that would have been something that I would have sent to. I would have, I'm technologically unsavvy, so I would have shown my dad that. I would have shown a couple people, and that probably would have been the end of it. To tell you the truth.
If we could actually see something like that, that would be. That's always been the issue with this whole thing about UFOs is, not being able, Jonathan seeing what he's seeing, you seeing what you're seeing, and not be able to like hand it over to someone, and say, here it is, everyone, this isn't BS.
Well, and we need to set the record straight with this. And I agree with a lot of people with this, but this is my stance on it. Disclosure is not about testimony. It's not about what Jonathan said. It's not about what I said. It's about evidence. And that's first and foremost the understanding I have. And so I'm hoping that there's other people who are well more in these programs, such as the insiders I've been working with, that have tangible evidence, which they do. And if they're able to hand that over and make it clear that this is something that is meant to be taken serious because of the seriousness behind it, because of the people being killed, threatened, harassed, because of the people being taken to be used as basically biological equipment into these facilities for these programs, it's something that's disturbing. It's something that I don't like knowing what I found out, being told by these people. I don't like it at all. In the instance I could tell everybody is that the rule that applies to my disclosure is careful with what you wish for.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, you mentioned, Michael, earlier that there was some type of program that actually may have shot or shoots up to like 3 craft a year or something. Did
It's
you say
2 to
something?
3. Yeah, the installation I was taken to, they shoot down 2 to 3 ET craft a year.
And
They
you
put
also heard that Jonathan's account of what he saw looked like it had been hit by what was that?
A Hawk service to air missile, Hawk Sam, Peruvian Air Force.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I mean, I also, every Thursday night, I do UAP Crossfire. And, I mean, it seems to be the consensus of a lot of people that, I mean, the big question is, oh yeah, these UFOs get here from wherever they get from, who knows, an unconventional or another star system, wherever they are from, how did they get here? And why are they crashing? And, I mean, everyone there in that consensus in that group, basically says, well, they're being shot down. And, so it's not unfathomable. That's what happens.
Well, and the thing with it too is, his and Jonathan's instance with that craft. I mean, from what I've been told, is at least the craft that these guys shoot down, they're hit with directed energy weapons or scalar longitudinal weapons that are EMPs that are super advanced, and they're very concentrated. But the problem with this, and this is another thing that I've been investigating, and I will continue until I come across what I need to provide whatever I can with helping with these individuals, which they're helping me with this too, at least these insiders. They put temporary flight restrictions on these installations when they're doing these operations. And some of the time, there's civilian aircraft, and I'm talking about private aircraft, that are shot down in the process, so that way they can't, they're keeping their stuff secret. And when I found out about that, I was very appalled, because you're talking about people who are flying that, oh, it's a temporary flight restriction. And the reason why they keep it temporary is because the installation I saw is in the middle of nowhere. And if there's a flight restricted area when there's nothing out there but a few buildings and whatnot, then wouldn't that kind of put a red flag over the area to figure out, well, okay, well, why is there restricted airspace here when there's nothing close by that would register it's a military installation like an Air Force base? So they do it at temporary. It goes up to 60,000 feet because there's nothing in our conventional aircraft that can fly that high realistically. And not only that, but they're not going to be able to get good observation over what's going on. But they do shoot down, and some of these insiders, they've had the knowledge that their bodies are retrieved, the wreckage is retrieved, and they dispose of it, and they put a missing persons report out. But They hit them with an EMP, and this is like prop planes, this is like helicopters, and they dispose of the wreckage, and it's like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, what people don't know is the U.S. government, with the Air Force, U.S. Air Force, I guess the Space Command, and the various intelligence gathering, the various groups there, right? NRO, NSA, and all this, but where they're tracking all objects, within Earth orbit, maybe beyond. That there's an intelligence, surveillance, strategic reconnaissance strike complex, and we have it. The Chinese have it. Probably the North Koreans have something like that. The Russians have it. Others, maybe Japan, other of your first world countries. So they're tracking all these objects, things that are flying in and out of the atmosphere 24/7. So they know all this is going on, and maybe they have something even beyond Earth orbit that we just don't know about that's classified. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't have an ISR strike complex in and around the moon.
I've always wondered that about, things flying in from orbit.
Well, we've got right SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, in the first Reagan administration.
Right.
The colloquial
Star
term was Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
That was deployed actually. It was leaked. Brilliant Pebbles. That was accidentally leaked, I believe, years ago. But I'm talking about like secret space programs, stuff like this, classified shuttle missions that we know we're putting satellites in the Defense Support Agency with the satellite systems that they've been putting into orbit for years.
Michael, the people that you were accompanied with, you said they never talked about it again. Have you, since you came out, has any one of them contacted you that heard that you were talking about this?
I had two of them that did.
Ah.
And one of them I tried to get to talk on the back end with some officials, and that's when they sent a text message basically saying it wasn't worth their life and that I need to not do this, and they urged me not to do it, and I obviously didn't listen, so that made them upset, and I understand that. But
well, it seems like safety in numbers,
Yeah, but what kind of safety can they be guaranteed? I mean, they see what I'm going through with this, and at least the ones I talked to, which is only two of them, they understand what I'm dealing with, and they've got kids. I don't have children, so these guys have children. They got stuff to lose, and I understand why they want. And I frankly tell them, don't be public. It's not fun. It's not.
Yeah. So what is a day-to-day life like for you? I know people have to work, but I mean, when you can, look into this. Do you feel like you're getting anywhere at all with what you're trying to do?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I am, but that's something I can't disclose because I'm working with people behind the scenes that are helping push this through. Let's just say there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. That's remarkable. That I feel that this is going to be the turning point this year to at least get the ball rolling, so that way we're not having to be continuing on the same path that we're going on here. Because frankly, from what I can estimate, if this continues, us as a civilization, we don't have much of a chance in the future, and I mean against each other. It's a great power corruption. There's something that's basically going to cause humanity to basically flatline itself with our own doing, and it just seems like it's just getting out of hand these days. I mean, the world's turning into a more scary place.
Yeah, have to agree. Yeah, I mean, let's hope this future of what you're doing is going to pan out and move the needle a bit. I'm sure you paid attention to when the AARO report came out, and it was rather disappointing to a lot of people that I know that you talked to as well.
Well, we expected it to go that way because, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What we feel is they were just siphoning information to try to either, say it doesn't exist or try to stonewall it per se. And the thing I loved about it was when I talked to the Senate Intelligence Committee and testified to other people prior to going over to Arrow, they got my account and they understood, and I gave them every detail about it. And then he went over to Arrow. So they have the information, but Arrow has the information. That's why they're supposed to hold Arrow accountable. And I don't think that that's been going on. So when Arrow published what I had said to an extent, they misrepresented the entire thing. They said that I said it was an extraterrestrial craft, which is not true because it was 100% man-made. And they said that I said it was U.S. Special Forces, which I found out it's former now, but that's after almost a year after testifying. So they're just kind of miswording things, and they did this with a bunch of everybody else's stuff I knew that testified. So it's like if they were so truthful in keeping the facts straight, why would they have to manipulate anything?
I agree. And, I already know Jonathan's stance on this, but I'll ask you, in general, do you trust the government? Is that almost a funny question? No, which is sad.
Well, it
Yeah.
is. I will say this. There are some, I was on the same stance that Jonathan is. I will say for the most part, I don't trust it, but I will say that I trust certain individuals in it that
Mhm.
are for the right causes, for the right things, which I can honestly say is probably very slim number of people that I've talked to. They're very outstanding people, and that's not a lot of them. Most of
Mm.
them, they want money. I mean, that's what if you want to go, if you want to be super rich, go into politics, man. Have
Yeah.
some senators or lobbyists buy you up, man. You get whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, run for office and get IPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, to give you $500,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, we could go totally off topic here, but I don't think it's a good idea on a UFO show. But I mean, I totally understand and agree with that. And it's funny. I got to tell you, I had a guest house I gave out as a weekend. I gave out on my show. I don't know, in 2015 or something like that, for someone to come visit and they could join in a show and all that. And so I gave it away to this guy, and he came up and we went to breakfast the next day. And I noticed he was dressed really well and, pretty wealthy and all that. And so he might be listening now. I don't know. So anyway, I said to him, "So what do you do for work?" And he said, "Well, I'm a lobbyist in Washington, D.C." And I went, "Oh," like that. And he started laughing. He goes, I know. And it's like, all right, because I really think that's a major problem with, I think lobby is really good for people with special needs and people that need things. But when it comes to the power of the lobby and the money and the things that they're changed and laws are changed just to make someone rich, I think that's unfortunately, like, I'm going totally off topic. We got to get back to UFOs, but somehow it's all interrelated, I think.
It is. No, it really is. That's the truth.
Yeah. But anyway, gentlemen, I think this has been a very interesting night, and I thank you both. And Mike, if you would please do pass that information along.
I will.
And I will put it right in the show notes for anyone to read.
Yeah, Cloud Rise there. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Those kind words.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice people. Thank you for your comments in chat tonight. And I thought this was very interesting to have you both on at the same time. I know it's the first time you've both have done this, and I think it was a great idea, and that you can kind of, I don't want to say share in the misery, but share in the trauma of what you both had to go through, and where it's led you, and it's tough. I can see from both of you that both of you have suffered from this. So anyway, I thank you both. Thank you for your service. I don't know, some people don't like when that is said, but anyway, I do thank you, and good luck with your future endeavors. And Jonathan, we're here together. We'll chat a little more. So thanks again, and talk to you soon. And next week I should be back with Charles Lear, I think it is. Looking for Sean Cahill was supposed to be on, but I don't think he's going to make it. So we'll look for Charles Lear next week. Remember to keep your eyes to the sky, and see you next week.